And let's see. What else? I want to add my voice to the growing chorus of voices who are interpreting the significance of the succession to Leonid Brezhnev, the new Secretary General of the Communist Party, and therefore the new first among equals in the Soviet Union, is Yuri Andropov. And quite frankly, I think the speculation, for the most part, is just a lot of hot air. The speculation has been engaged ad infinitum, ad nauseum, by all of the networks, by all of the newspapers, by many organs of the local press, and it's an exercise in self-deception. And interestingly, the most prescient, the most salient observation of the succession of Brezhnev by Yuri Andropov was made by a gentleman by the name of Posner. Now, don't let that name fool you. He is a Soviet. He is a Soviet broadcaster. And when you say a person is a broadcaster or a journalist in the Soviet Union, that means he's a party hack who mouths the cliches and the propaganda bilge of the Communist Party and the Soviet government. This Mr. Posner may have been seen by some of you last night in a fascinating dialogue with Ted Koppel as the Soviet, oddly enough, who was closer to the truth than anybody else when he said it really is not significant what superficial differences there may be between Leonid and Yuri. The fact is, my dear fellow Americans, they represent the same rotten system, the same corrupt totalitarian regime, which has been dedicated, is now dedicated, and will always be dedicated to the destruction of freedom, of democracy, the crippling of capitalism, and the end of your rights as a free-thinking human being. The key to it all is the fact that the Soviet Union is afraid of an open exchange of ideas and of opinions. The key to it all is that the Soviet Union was afraid of the stirrings of freedom and independence in Czechoslovakia and in Hungary, and crushed both of those stirrings, and has been in the process of stifling, of attempting to suffocate the stirrings for freedom in Poland. Lech Walesa is freed, but he is not free. Notice, he has not one time since his release mentioned the word solidarity. And when I see the Cora Weisses and the William Sloan Coffins and others in this country talk the way they do, it is only confirmation that, yes, indeed, we are free. And it only illustrates the difference between our beliefs and theirs. Détente, yes, but naive fantasy, no. So those people who think that because Yuri Andropov likes to pinch Hungarian women, and indeed was supposed to have been quite a roue during his time in Budapest, and because he likes English Scotch, and because he maybe tells a joke now and then, if they think that that makes any difference, then indeed they are naive. We're going to wonder what... I can't help but wonder what the heck is happening to the heart of New York City. And let's face it, the city is thought of internationally and the rest of the country in terms of what Manhattan is like. And Manhattan is where it's at. But you walk in Midtown Manhattan, for example, right outside where the WMCA complex is. And immediately to the north of the building, there are a bunch of guys selling handbags, sweaters, scarves, gloves, hats, like a bazaar in Baghdad. And I see them fold up their tents and run because they say, "Geez, the cops." It's like a Leo Gorcey movie. On the other side of the building, a group of very distinguished citizens are always smoking grass, pot, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. And they just sit there insouciant, just as calm as you please. I thought it was against the law. I really did. Or something. Now look, we should either legalize the dumb stuff or prosecute. And as far as these guys turning Midtown Manhattan, or all of Manhattan, into a banana republic or some Middle Eastern bazaar, it certainly isn't fair. It demeans the city, and it's not fair to those merchants who are paying tremendous rents and taxes in order to be in business. Let's get to our newsmaker line, because we want to talk to Dr. John Pastore, who is patiently waiting at the other end. And Dr. Pastore is a member of the board of directors for the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. And just yesterday, we interviewed on this broadcast Robert Scheer, the author. He talked about some people appearing on Soviet television.
Working with the Soviet physicians and with physicians from 29 other countries now for a couple of years in our organization, the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. And we know what the agenda is. We stay non-political. We talk about the medical effects of nuclear weapons. For instance, my experience is from Hiroshima in Japan, where I served on the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission. And basically what we told the Soviet people is what we tell the American people, and that is that from a medical standpoint alone, there is no limiting a nuclear war once it gets started, and there is no reasonable expectation of medicine helping out after a nuclear war starts, because medicine would become irrelevant as a result of a nuclear war. And this is what the Soviet people were told. It's the same message we've been attempting to bring to the American people as well.
Certainly, you're not a naive person, and you have to believe that there must be some reason behind the Soviet officialdom allowing you to do this. What do you suppose it is?
Well, I think the Soviet physicians, I can only speak for them because we weren't really dealing with the political leaders of the Soviet Union. But
well, Dr. Pastore, you surprised me. You're always dealing with the Soviet political system when you have anything to do with any Soviet.
Well,
I mean, you don't think these doctors on their own could invite you? You don't think that without the express approval of the Soviet government, you could have gone into the Soviet Union, let alone appear on television?
Well, I think that is true. I think that that's encouraging, as a matter of fact, because the message we brought to the Soviet people on television was that neither side could win a nuclear war, and neither side could really survive it.
I want to mention something about Dr. Pastore, but also I'd like to mention something about your guest yesterday, Robert Scheer.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Dr. Pastore, I think the man is incredibly naive. I think essentially his message is better read than dead. And what he forgets is that we've had peace for 36 years. We've had an absence of atomic warfare, not because the Russians are such sweet, lovable people, but because they are deterred by our nuclear arsenal. Now, as far as Robert Scheer, do you recall Scheer back in the 60s? He was one of these radicals, anti-war types, and he reminds me of Jerry Rubin and Tom Hayden. He puts on a tie and a suit now, but essentially, I don't think he's changed fundamentally.
Well, fundamentally, he hasn't changed. He's maybe you heard him bristle a little bit when I reminded him of his Ramparts days and alluded to Ramparts as a radical publication.
Yeah.
It would still be, except it's out of business.
Yeah, I think he's just one of these 60s guys that have their juices flowing now with the freeze campaign. And he mentioned Paul Warnke. He speaks of Paul Warnke with reverence. I think that everyone should remember that Paul Warnke was the foreign policy advisor to George McGovern, and that labels him pretty well.
You see, what is depressing and discouraging, Fred, is that these people never let up. And the only satisfaction, let me tell you where I'm coming from. I want to see a little insight into some of the pathos that we're all capable of fantasizing. And that is the only satisfaction I'll get when we fall like the ripe apple, the overripe apple that Lenin said we would become, is the looks on the faces of the people you're talking about. Because these people are just that. They are naive, incredibly naive. They haven't gotten the message yet that we're dealing with an implacable foe. We're dealing with a philosophy that has never changed. We're dealing with an adversary that does anything it wants and gets away with it inevitably. They got away with Afghanistan. If they fail in Afghanistan, it isn't because of anything we did. They did get away with Czechoslovakia. They did get away with Hungary. They are getting away with what they are doing to Poland again and again and again. They do get away with it. And then you have the people that you've talked about and their compatriots talk about what the United States should do. And, Fred, I'm sorry, but guys like you, and yes, even guys like me, we don't have enough input here to influence the outcome. But the Robert Shears, and I don't mean to pick on him, but since you talked about him, the tenacity, the single-mindedness of that bunch is far greater. You see, the people who feel pretty much the way you do, Fred, they're more worried about what's going to happen to the National Football League than what's going to happen to the United States. Am I being too harsh?
No, I think we're being nibbled to death, Bob, and I think the American people are too naive and too fat and too happy and too satisfied to really care much about what's going on. I mean, you're right.
You said it better than I did. Thank you, Fred. All right, on WMCA, we interrupt the commercials for a phone call. But you see, the Soviet Union has one big advantage, and that is a bunch of either out-and-out lefties or incredibly naive people who believe in the tooth fairy, who are willing to do their bidding for them. I'm amazed. Look, I'm no cold warrior. I'm not one of these people that says, let's arm to the teeth and confront them at all times. I think that we should pursue détente in hopes that someday there will come to power some people that don't have the obsession with communizing the world. But on the other hand, to do their bidding, as so many otherwise intelligent Americans do, is just unacceptable. Unacceptable and unbelievable.
Hey, Bob, just, from my own experience here in the city, in Manhattan, my wife and I, we walk around the streets, and we're constantly aware and, in a sense, trying to be prepared for the bullies and the other types that mug people and so forth. And by our constant vigilance, we've managed to stay out of trouble because it seems they're looking for the weaklings or the people who are unaware or make themselves vulnerable. And, on a larger scale, the Russians do this too, it seems, in the sense of being a bully.
Well, I think you've put it very well, and I appreciate that. Thank you for the call. I want to congratulate Senator Al D'Amato. I want to congratulate him for the skillful, adroit statesmanship he employed in settling a rather messy situation. A senator who was able to head off some ludicrous problem concerning the United States Department of Education and the New York City Public Schools in this obsession with quotas and color schemes, which a lot of people still have in this country. They had an integration order which would have disrupted a lot of people, so-called minority people as well as non-minority people, teachers. The government did back down, thanks to the senator, from an earlier demand that the school system transfer teachers to improve the balance of minority teachers in the schools. You see, these are the racists. These are the real racists of our time. These are the people who aren't concerned with the quality of education or the quality of work or the quality of anything. They're concerned with the color of the skins of people who are teaching or who are learning or who are attempting to do both or avoiding doing neither. We did designate this portion of our daily Gestalt therapy session talking to Maxwell Newton. Now, Maxwell Newton writes in the New York Post a column on your money.
That I find particularly tiresome are those on the radio and even more on the television who want to promote the idea of a socialist America. And I think that most of the pundits on the main TV channels do really favour a form of socialist government for the United States. I think that goes for
not too long ago, I might have disagreed with you, but I do another program here, and it's called Special Edition. Without mentioning publications, I've gotten to get a pretty good insight on some journalists who write for these publications, very prestigious publications. And when you talk with them off the air, in private, just letting hair down and so forth, you get a better idea of what a person's really all about. You'd agree with that, wouldn't you, Max?
Yes.
And I would say, with rare exception, they all are socialist inclined. Either they believe in a socialist system, or they lean toward a socialist system. So I would agree with you, Max.
I think an example of that is the agitation that's currently going on about the need to balance the federal budget.
Don't you believe in balancing the federal budget, Max?
Oh, yes, I suppose. I'm much more concerned about restricting the growth of government spending than I am about balancing the budget. Because what most of the people who agitate for a balanced budget, including people like Mr. Henry Kaufman of Salomon Brothers, who ought to know better, is that they argue in favour of balancing the budget by means of increasing taxation, which is, of course, merely a way of ensuring that the high level of government spending that has been achieved will look more respectable.
All right, very quickly. That slams the lid on things for today. Until Monday, when I shall return as Bob Grant, hoping you'll listen to Louisa Kennedy tomorrow and Friday, and reminding you, get Gaddafi! In time, most responsible for this book, the book titled At Dawn We Slept, The Untold Story of Pearl Harbor by Gordon W. Prang, the late Professor Prang. And it does, as you heard Donald Goldstein, he doesn't have an axe to grind, but facts are inescapable. What amazes me is how, well, let me put it to you bluntly. If FDR were a conservative, the media would have seen to it immediately that his feet would have been held to the fire. Okay? Need I say any more? Oh, that man gave an opinion that was unfavorable to one of my heroes. Oh, my. Get him off the air. Get that man off the air. I don't like his opinions one single bit. Did you hear that guy actually say something? And so it goes on and on and on. And whether you live on Old Mamaroneck Road up in White Plains or Colony, New Jersey, even though there is no such place, wherever you may live, you're entitled to call. You're entitled to call. It isn't as big as the Battle of Glen Cove just yet, but another Long Island town, Bayville, is sparring with Soviet diplomats. This time over a parking ticket given to Ivan Miroshkin, first secretary of the Soviet mission. He's refused to pay the $25 fine for parking illegally in Bayville, claiming diplomatic immunity. The cheapskate. Bayville Mayor Victoria Siegel says balderdash, and she wants the fine paid and the traffic and parking violations by the Soviets stopped.
George Steinbrenner, who really gets on my nerves. George rips shy socks on Bannister deal. What, does George want all the free agents? Well,
I was curious. A while back, you used words when speaking about the bill aimed toward protection of homosexuals. You used two words, aberrant behavior and perversions. And I was wondering whether you actually knew the definitions of those words.
I think I do.
The reason I asked is because neither one of those words is used anymore
Oh, I know that. I know. I'm quite well aware that they're not used by certain people, even...
No, I'm not saying certain people. I'm saying that the DMS-3, which is the Diagnostic Manual of the American Psychiatric Society...
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
...no longer uses those words, and so I was wondering whether you use those words in ignorance or whether you use those words as critical and judgmental words, reflecting your own feeling about homosexuals, and not directly saying your feeling, but using words which are somewhat humiliating and labeling.
Well, the labeling is not in the word. The labeling is in the action. The labeling is in the action that is brought about by a mind that is imprisoned by this obsession with a sexual behavior that is not the norm. A sexual behavior that, were it the behavior that were the norm, mankind would not be here today.
All right.
Mankind would never have arrived at the scene. And if you want to make this an Alice in Wonderland world where we say good is bad and bad is good and up is down, etc., then you go ahead and do that. But please don't take me with you. I don't want to join in.
My purpose, I don't want you to misunderstand. My purpose was to clarify for myself where you were coming from, and you have your right, certainly, to come from that position.
Well, you know, it's a sad state when in a man's lifetime, in a very brief lifetime, a short span of time, suddenly those of us who are in the majority, those of us who have the viewpoint that is backed up by thousands and thousands of years of humanity, suddenly we're to be put on the defensive? I think that's absurd. These are individuals who have a sickness.
Clarify one thing. I happen to be heterosexual. I also happen to be a heterosexual.
You know, you say it as though you happen to be something that's odd and peculiar and unusual.
I don't say it that way at all. That's your interpretation of how I say it. That is not the way I felt when I was saying it.
Well, I'm telling you the way you sound, that you even say I have...
However, that's your interpretation. What I am saying is that as a heterosexual and a heterosexual professional in a field that, well, I'd say the mental health field, what I could say is that you have your right to your opinion, certainly, but your opinion, you must admit, is subjective. It is not objective, and you can be labeled with a name as well, and that name is homophobic. Now, for you to be labeled...
If it's important for you to label me, if that seems to make you feel better, you go right ahead. Homophobic. If you want to call me.
I ask you, is it important for you to label other people?
Yes, it is. It is important for me, in the context of the discussion we were having, to tell it like it is, as I see it. As I see it.
You see it, yes.
Of course. Now, you want to tell me one more time, in that patronizing manner, that I have a right to my opinion? Would you do it one more time? One for the road.
I sincerely believe that you have a right to your opinion.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
I'm WMCA. Seems like old times. Hey, Bill. Oh, pretend that you've read 1984. Why don't you really read it? And straight ahead, this special edition. In the meantime, get Gaddafi. New York Post says, how much longer will President Reagan put up with the crude attempts of Senator Robert Dole, the Republican chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, to belittle the president's leadership and promote his own ambitions for the presidency? They say it was Dole who virtually single-handedly ran the first Reagan budget into trouble by boosting farm subsidies by $5 billion more than was requested, and the Export-Import Bank by millions more than it needed. It was Dole who pushed through last year's $99.6 billion tax increase, biggest peacetime tax hike bill in history, on the phony argument that it would reduce the budget deficit. It was Dole who rushed on to national TV to gloat over the first Republican election defeats last month and proclaim that the party was taking a bath and that the Senate leadership would have to be, quote, less responsive to Reagan's initiatives. And it was Dole who rushed to Moscow on the death of Leonid Brezhnev and asked for an interview with new Soviet leader Yuri Andropov, regardless of the danger to U.S. foreign policy at a time of such uncertainty when the White House and State Department were still reassessing the new situation. And they go on to say, fortunately, the Russians had Dole's measure and refused him the publicity or the publicity vehicle he sought. And then they underline, when will the White House take his true measure and cut him down to size in like manner? You know, hardly a day passes now without Dole trying to grab the headlines at the expense of his own administration, his own president. His latest complaint is about relations between the White House and the Senate leadership. Robert Dole says of the president, some of us wonder if he knows who his friends are. Well, the Post says certainly Dole is no friend. On the contrary, he is a man obsessed with the presidency, a failed vice presidential candidate in 1976, a failed presidential aspirant in 1980 when he got only 607 votes in the New Hampshire primary, and now a premature candidate for a vacancy which does not exist. We really should sit down with the president, which we have never done, and talk to him about some of our problems, says Dole. Well, in fact, Dole sits down with Reagan and talks about the administration's and the country's problems regularly. The last such occasion was at the Republican Congressional Conference in the White House just 2 weeks ago, when Dole opposed Reagan's plan to accelerate next year's 10% tax cut from July 1 to January 1. In italicized exasperation, the Post says, Dole's proclaimed frustration over not being able to get through to Reagan's aides is self-serving. Doesn't he ever talk to his wife, Elizabeth Dole, the $61,000 a year White House assistant to the president for public liaison? Clearly, the president should send Mrs. Dole home from her work early to liaise with her husband and tell him that in politics, those who don't hang together hang separately.
Are still being invaded by legal and illegal immigrants. What is wrong with our immigration law? The Simpson-Missouri bill, it seems to have died there in Washington. You used to talk about it. You said it was a losing battle. Your listeners write to their congressman and...
It's not going to do any good. I'm telling you, the only time we're going to get a handle on this is when it gets bad enough that the people really demand the harsh measures it will take.
Yeah.
We need massive roundups and deportations.
They round up a dozen a year, and it's in the front page.
What would be wrong with putting barbed wire and minefields on our borders, huh?
Well, why not? Why not?
I mean, really, seriously.
Yeah, why not put the National Guard out there?
Well, you don't need the National Guard. If we were to put minefields on the borders, not the Canadian border, I don't think we need it there yet, but they might start coming in through there. If we would put minefields, not to keep people in, like the Berlin Wall is to keep East Germans in East Germany, but to keep people out.
Well, Jimmy Carter rates himself a number 8 on TV the other day, and he allowed 25,000 criminal, insane Cubans.
Oh, yeah, well, Fidel Castro got a triple hernia laughing over that one.
Still laughing.
Yeah.
We're going to suffer from now till God knows when.
Thank you. And that slams the lid on things for today and for this week. Until Monday, Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi now.
Claude, I want to let you know I'm sending a present to one of your favorite politicians in Washington, Mr. Pepper. It's a tape recording of one of his famous pronouncements, and I know you know what pronouncement that is.
That couldn't be. Don't tamper with Social Security.
How right you are, young man. And I'm amazed at the hypocrisy of that whole business. You notice how quiet it is down there with Mr. Pepper right now. Even the commission can't arrive at some sort of finding as to what to do with Social Security.
Oh, some of you didn't know you could deduct it, of course. That's right. I know one guy. He deducts, really, it's incredible. He works, his wife works. They deduct both cars as business. I mean, I could go on, but if I say much more, you'll know who it is, and then David Hazarai will be embarrassed. In his P. Green 1947 Studebaker, license number SOB 696969.
But anyway, getting back to the... You join me for that. In the meantime, get Gaddafi.
But the two people listening, Catherine and, what was the guy's name from Staten Island that knew George had? Neither one of them knew. So, our audience didn't know. Next week, by the way, our audience will double. The two other people who have been out of town will come back.
Right here on MCA is Lonesome Bob. Remember Lonesome George, Lonesome Bob? That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, get Gaddafi. Dr. Stephen Trokel, he doesn't even have time to thank me. I don't even have time to say, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi.
It was nice to hear about that guy who caught that deviant.
Too bad he didn't kill that mutant.
I'm sorry. I agree with you. But
let's go to our telephones and on our Long Island line. By the way, I want to congratulate the 360 line, all you folks out there on that New Jersey line and the Westchester County line, the 237. I want to congratulate both of you respectively. You have maintained a 100% perfect record today. You haven't lit up either one of those cotton-picking lines once. What are you, dead? All right. Whatever happened to those gavones that used to say, Happy New Year? Nobody really gets bombed on New Year's Eve anymore, do they? I mean, that's amateur night. Maron. Hey,
The medical breakthrough happened last year, and what they did was they separated this thing out called ACLU, and they found out that ACLU caused cancer in laboratory animals. And they found this out after many, many tests and lots of aggravation. And ACLU, properly spelled, is ACLU. And I think if you said, get rid of ACLU at the end of each program instead of Gaddafi, you have something going. Because that's what we have to get rid of, that cancer-causing agent, ACLU.
Well, I agree. I think they have caused more harm than good. I think they're an organization, whether they intended it to be or not, that has done more to dismantle anything that's worthwhile in this country. I think they have aided and abetted the criminal to such an extent that it's safer to walk the streets a criminal than it is a decent, law-abiding citizen. I think that virtually every stand they have taken has been inimical to what I believe are the best interests of the United States. Nevertheless, I don't think I would be really able to, for any length of time, sign off, if I wanted to sign off the program in the fashion you described.
Well, I know...
But we live in a very strange country. When you have people such as the Maryknolls, there were two people, Father Lloyd and a nun, Sister Vortruba, Dr. Vortruba, who appeared on Barry Gray's program. And Barry, I must say, I must compliment him. He was excellent today. He was not timorous. He dared to ask some tough questions. And they weren't able to answer him. They never did answer him when he quoted two very excellent sources as maintaining that these two Maryknolls were interested in, the Maryknoll order is interested in Marxism. What they call Christian Marxism, Catholic Marxism, which of course is an impossibility because, as I see it, Christianity and Marxism, or Catholicism and Marxism, are mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, Marxism is not in harmony with any religion, whether it be Judaism, Muslim, Christianity. Anyway, they couldn't answer him. They wouldn't answer him. They avoided answering him. These are the people who find no fault with Fidel Castro. They couldn't condemn Castro. Father Lloyd made a half-hearted effort to sound as though he might be criticizing Castro mildly, but then he had to go on to say, yeah, but the Cuban people suffered under Batista. Well, let me tell you, there are very few Cubans who wouldn't trade Castro for Batista.
Oh, yeah.
This is just for you. That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you, get ACLU. Okay? That's just for Vic. So ACLU, don't get excited. That was just for Vic. Just for Vic.
ladies and gentlemen, on a WMCA Newsmaker line, and really it is much ado about nothing, but you know how we in the media are. It's a slow day, it's Christmas week, it's what have you. We got to make something out of something, otherwise we'll get our editors mad, our program directors mad. Got to keep riled up out there, keep riled up, keep excited, biting their fingernails. A thrill a minute. Excuse me. Have you heard about the fabulous new Gold Room restaurant? Got to get off this cheesecake high. When did I take it intravenously? We're taking phone calls here. If you're calling from New Jersey, let me say this. You're in very rare company, and you are indeed a unique individual. You are not a follower. You are a leader, an innovator, a person of great imagination. Because I'm told, I don't know why, but I'm told that the New Jersey line has been empty since a guy called Dr. Elise Goldstein on it this morning at 10:42, and here's what he said. Play the recording of that call to Dr. Goldstein that came in on the New Jersey line at 10:42 a.m. Would you do that, please? Okay, roll that tape. Put it in that tape machine. Okay, roll the tape. Roll it. Dr. Goldstein.
Yes?
Dr. Goldstein.
Yes?
Dr. Goldstein.
Yes? That's very good. You're getting better.
Okay, thank you. That little excerpt from the Dr. Goldstein program this morning at 10:42. That was the last time the New Jersey line had been used. Some guy called, he breathed heavily, and Dr. Goldstein told him he was getting better.
I had a fellow work for me for 9 weeks who I had to let go because he was between 20 minutes and 45 minutes late daily. 3 or 4 days a week. He was told about this. He also took 4 days off within that 9 weeks.
Lovely.
I let the fella go. He went to collect unemployment. I thought it was a little unfair considering he'd only worked 9 weeks. I called the Unemployment Bureau. They classified that reason for dismissal as misconduct. He was then made ineligible for benefits under that qualification. 10 days later, he appealed it to their review appeal board. They, too, denied him benefits because of misconduct. 6 weeks later, he can collect.
6 weeks later? Why?
I have called Trenton. I have written letters. This is the law. This is what I'm told by Trenton.
In other words, it doesn't make any difference why the skunk had to be let go. If he can hang on, keep breathing for 6 weeks.
You got it.
He'll get it.
You got it.
He probably mooched off of somebody, maybe some in-law.
And then we have to, naturally the employers then have what they call an experience rating account, which you pay into for unemployment.
Yeah, I know.
For about 50 years or however long.
Keeps the cost of doing business up.
Yep. And I'm going to be writing to all my representatives, whatever I have to do. I can understand unemployment benefits.
Don't bother writing to Peter Rodino. He'll say, well, it seems to me this fellow's entitled to your shop.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Peter Rodino, God bless Peter, you got to really hand it to him because he hands it to everybody else. Thank you very much, sir. That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get everybody! Speaking of Barry Gray, I heard the outrage that he shares with me over the fact that an organization called the Man-Boy Love Association not only exists and flourishes, but flaunts its aberration to the rest of humanity. I have made dire predictions about the future of this country for a long, long time. Someone remarked just the other day that I haven't been doing that much lately. They wanted to know why. Did I feel more sanguine about the future? Did I think that perhaps we were turning the corner and we were going to mend our ways? My answer was, I'd like to think that we were mending our ways. I'd like to think that we were coming off our bottom, but no, I didn't think that. I just felt that people might be weary of hearing the Jeremiah
predictions. And so I gave it a rest. Gave the predictions a rest. But you see, when something like this happens with the Eton Pates case, and now the fact that other youths are missing, I see the FBI launched a nationwide manhunt for Charles Dyson, 13, of Highlands, New Jersey. His parents reported him missing on November 29th. And they are investigating this organization. I think that those of you who don't seem to be outraged, maybe we shouldn't blame you. Maybe so much has happened. Maybe so many so-called civil libertarians have brainwashed you to such an extent that you feel guilty if you want to criticize or come down on any lifestyle. As though that phrase lifestyle is supposed to excuse whatever anybody does. You could say a murderer, a person who kills as a hitman, say, for the mob, you could say, well, that's his lifestyle. His lifestyle is he assassinates people. That's his lifestyle. That's supposed to make it all right. That phrase came into popularity in the late 60s and early 70s and is used to, if not justify, to excuse slovenly appearance, unhygienic habits, and a whole host of abominable traits that people can fall victim to. But the so-called lifestyle with the man-boy love association is just what the name says it is. It's men, well, at least technically they're men, who have an aberration, and that aberration is that they want to commit sexual acts with very young boys. Now, if a person did that to a young boy walking down the street, or in an elevator, or in a parked car, or in an office building, or in a home, he would be charged with child molestation, which isn't really all that serious to the perpetrator, because child molesters would do very well in revolving doors because they're used to going in but then coming out again. But he would be charged with child molestation. This so-called NAMBLA, this man-boy love association, is formed with the idea of perpetuating and extending that. I understand it has two goals. One is to release what they call all political prisoners. You know what they call political prisoners? All those serving time for child molestation. I think it's high time, assuming that the normal people, assuming that the healthy people, assuming that the non-aberrant people, assuming that those people who still hold sacred the innocence of a child, making those assumptions, I think it's vitally important that if we do outnumber them, and this is the assumption, you see I'm getting sidetracked, I'm assuming we outnumber the deviates. But whether we do or whether we don't, we better take a stand very soon, otherwise it will be too late, if indeed it isn't already. That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi.
I wanted to talk about the recent exodus from Cuba, which was, 2 years ago?
Yes.
At that time, one of the local champions of those people coming, because they were coming from a country with no freedom, was the late night Barry. He was getting very excited because some people were criticizing that exodus. But it seemed to me that they could have been put back on the boat and given them $20 and some bologna sandwiches and took them back to Guantanamo Bay and opened the back gate and tell them that they were home.
Oh, we could have done that, but that would have taken too much imagination and too much guts. As far as Mr. Farber is concerned, you've got to forgive him because he's an incurable romantic, an absolute idealist in the finest sense of the word, and he thought that perhaps these individuals getting out of Castro's Cuba were lovers of freedom. He was, because of his incurable romanticism, naive enough to think that they were the type of citizens who hated Castro and his communist tyranny, and who would be people who would help the United States. Instead, the tragedy has shown that most of these people, at best, have been mental misfits, vegetating in mental institutions, and at worst, murderers, killers, robbers, thieves, marauders of the most vicious type. Yeah, this is Bob Grant on our, our Long Island line. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Bob?
Speaking.
Oh, this is Tom from Huntington.
Tom, I admire you because obviously you're able to get through without even using a telephone.
Oh, my God. Trying to get to you is trying...
This guy doesn't believe in telephones. I'll bet you when this guy first used the phone when he was a kid, his mom used to say, "Now, Tom, remember, shout real loud so they'll hear you."
I don't want to shout loud, Bob. I have a very important question to ask you.
Yes, Tom.
My niece is going out with a person in Philadelphia. I shouldn't mention that, however.
Why? What's wrong? You can mention cities.
Okay, now, Bob, here's the situation.
But not the last name. We don't want to hear the last name.
Oh, no.
You said Philadelphia, that's fine. We don't want to hear Philadelphia's last name.
Right, Tom.
Otherwise, a knee-jerk producer will zap you.
I go back with you way back.
If you say Pennsylvania, which would be the last name of Philadelphia, you get zapped. All right, Tom, what is it you want to say? On the surface, everybody wants to say they are for human rights.
That's right. It's highly moral, but it is not consistent with our self-interest at the moment.
Well, it was that same naive policy that allowed Jimmy, I'll never lie to you, Carter to get bamboozled by Fidel Castro.
But they really don't have a big problem here. And furthermore, I don't think they really have to do anything with Social Security. I'm going to be with that guy that you keep talking about who says don't touch Social Security.
Well, what? No, wait a minute now. Now, hold it now. When he says don't tamper with Social Security,
yeah.
What the rest of the quote in the interview, he does say that raise the taxes on it. See, so that's tampering. Every time they take out more money from the employee and the employer, and every time they raise the threshold of the amount of money they take it out on, that's tampering. But he doesn't talk about that aspect of it. What he's talking about are the people who keep getting these so-called entitlement increases. He doesn't tell you about the higher payroll taxes. 3 increases are scheduled in the payroll tax in 1985, 1986, and 1990. I'm going to cheat him. I'm going to quit working.
Well, that's...
As a matter of fact, there are some people who say that I will whether I want to or not. Yes, go ahead, please.
You do. But you have to understand, we have, I think that the figure is 36 million senior citizens.
You mean 36 million old folks. Let's stop with the euphemisms.
Okay, older people.
And that includes me. I tell you, you know what makes me laugh? Wait, you know, why don't we stop being euphemistic? If somebody dies, why don't we say he died? Why don't we say he passed away? What's pass away? He died.
Okay, he's not bankrupt, though. What's happened is these guys have made an estimate that within the next few years, they're going to have somewhere between 150 and $200 billion that they can't handle. Now...
Well, listen, let me just say, I'm talking to you, and I haven't addressed myself to what you're saying, Vic, but I want to point out for the edification of the listeners.
Yeah.
Vic, please don't take this personally, but Vic is all wet, folks. Vic doesn't seem to know that there's a $216 billion financial shortfall that is with us already.
Yeah, but the Social Security Fund is broken up into 3 things.
I'm telling you, I got my information from the Department of Health and Human Services, Vic. I don't know where you're getting yours from.
Well, it's certainly not from the juvenile detention ward, that's for certain.
Juvenile detention
They
ward.
both on you. On you.
Dear me.
Well, anyway, let me tell you.
Yeah, Vic.
I think they're all wet, you see, because the only time you...
All right, everybody's all wet. Now, ladies and gentlemen, through special tape extrapolator, here is John Scheuer's typical 1982 caller. Roll that actual tape from the extrapolator, please. Hello, Mr. Scheuer. I want you to know that I have $750,000 in CDs.
Yes.
I have $1,250,000 in real estate.
Yes.
Let's see. I have a stock portfolio of $252,000.
Yes.
And I have $1,252,000 in T-bills. That's about all I can think of.
Yes.
My problem is, I found a passbook with $2,000 in it. What should I do? I mean, have you listened to him? It's amazing the amount of money that people casually recount on the air. And I got to give John credit. He hasn't told him yet what to do with it, and that's the thing to do. You gotta have footwork there. Gotta have footwork. I've been listen. Don't feel bad. I share an office with him, and I see him personally. I'm trying to get him to tell me what to do with my meager funds. He doesn't even know what I'm doing with it, and he says, "Don't worry, you're doing the right thing. Doing the right thing."
We're not going to challenge the Soviet Union. What is all this? I want to ask you, why all the talk about defense buildup? We're not going to challenge them. We don't challenge them anywhere. Where do we challenge them? Tell me. Have I missed a point? Every person at that press conference, every person from the media is there to make a name for himself. Every person there wants to make points with the editor, the program director, or who have you, back wherever he gets his paycheck. And they're all trying to get the president. Nothing personal. And it doesn't necessarily make any difference who the president is. Although, let's face it, some presidents are more likely to get it from the media than others, because there's no doubt in my mind that the media has a liberal bias that probably will never go away. After doing special edition on particular nights, which I shan't name, I'm more convinced than ever that it's just, that's it. It goes with the territory. Goes with the territory. Maybe that's what makes guys like me so unusual. Different. Not better. Not smarter. Not more in possession of the truth, although I think we all believe we are. But different. Now, we had announced that the mayor of Yonkers would be joining us. Someone called a radio station and talked to one of our junior executives and said, is he having the mayor of Yonkers, or is he going all the way to the top and having the Gumbara of Yonkers? Well, we're having the mayor of Yonkers. It's kind of like in the United Kingdom. You can interview the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, but you can't just barge in and interview Her Highness Queen Elizabeth. It's the same thing in Yonkers. You have Mayor Martinelli, who serves at the pleasure of the people, and then you go to the royalty, and that would be Ugumbara of Yonkers. All right, let's...
First of all, I'd like to compliment you on your usage of the English language.
Hello, Myron. How do you like that? He compliments me, and a competing station sabotaged the call. It's happening, you know. They got guys, all the other stations have guys assigned to sabotage the call. How do you like that? It's conked out. It's gone. Again, this shouldn't happen again. What happened to Myron? Poor Myron. You know what Myron's going to think? Myron is going to think I hung up on him. Invoking the Bob Grant of old. Well, I shouldn't put it that way. Of yesteryear.
Shouldn't put it that way either. Anyway, it's too good. It's too... Would you do me a favor, Abe and Jack? Would you make the ice cream a little less tasty? Just a little less tasty, please. I mean, you know, you put up 20... Do you know what happened to me over the holidays? Disaster. Disaster. I'm walking around... You know that Jerkola from Libya? He moved into that place up in Englewood. Well, they were living in a tent before they bought that place in Englewood. I'm walking around dressed in the guy's tent. He left it on the Paramus Mall. I picked it up anyway. He's once again becoming the Ed Koch that many of us had in the past admired. His candor, his style in getting right to the point, whether you had your toes stubbed by him or not. And Mayor Koch blamed former President Jimmy Carter for pardoning Puerto Rican terrorists of the 50s for the continued existence of the FALN terror gang. Now, I don't know how much publicity that is going to get, but I want to focus on that because I think that's part of the reason. I don't say the whole reason, but that's part of the reason that we have some of the problems we have internally in America today. And somehow or other, we're still brainwashed by the Hollywood post-World War II plethora of movies which prove once again a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, because we all were inculcated with the belief that if you make nice to a vicious man-eating lion, that vicious man-eating lion will act like a little kitty cat. No. You don't turn a lion into a kitty cat. You don't turn a lion into a lamb. When that beast roars, shows its fangs, and eats up your fellow citizen, you know that you must either destroy that beast or keep him in a cage for the rest of his natural life. But there's still people today in 1983 roaming around thinking that you can turn a lion into a lamb. And those pardons, those paroles, those releases, and I'm not just talking about Jimmy Carter, I'm talking about all the people involved in releasing brigands of all stripes. Those people should share some of the blame. When are we going to learn? How many more people have to be needlessly maimed, murdered? How many more families of victims have to be left bereaved with broken hearts for the rest of their days? How many more radio talk show hosts have to say, when is this nonsense going to end? Well, you know, Claude Pepper, speaking of demagoguery, Claude Pepper keeps walking around saying, don't tamper with Social Security. And yet they don't hesitate in tampering with our paychecks by increasing the amount of money that they take out from me, from the employer, and the threshold that increases. That's tampering, isn't it?
Well, it means that the aliens who no longer live in this country, who are not citizens, and I gave a case where one person contributed $25 to the system, not a citizen, left this country, and has received more than $11,000 in benefits. Now, how about the case? And by the way, there are cases that amount to almost $1 billion a year going out of the system. Just in examples like that, a person puts in $265 into the Social Security system and draws in benefits $43,000. That person no longer resides in the United States, is not a citizen, is an alien. I say give him back his $265, give him back compound interest, but not $43,000.
Really? Now, the workfare program is going in West Virginia. This is something we've heard about for, the last 10, 12, 15 years or so. People say, hey, they're on welfare, let them work for it. And basically, that's not a bad idea. But, of course, our good friends at the ACLU and others like it say, that's not fair. It's not fair.
Well, why is it not fair? I still like to know why. The average modest hotel room in New York runs $80. Oh, that's obscene. But for the discriminating, there is a $1,600 a night 3-bedroom suite at the Carlisle, a favorite of the British royal family. Will you be taking tea? Lady Diana, will you be taking tea? By the way, where is Prince Charles? Oh, really? So soon? My word. Anyway. And let's be heard. All right. We're going to go to our news. I said that, let's be heard, for the benefit of a fellow who used to produce this program, but he goofed up, so we exiled him to that overnight time when nobody's really listening, but it sounds good anyway. Moscow says people here on Earth have nothing to fear from its Cosmos 1402 satellite equipped with a nuclear reactor and now falling out of orbit in space. The TASS news agency says the reactor has been broken up into separate fragments to ensure that all of it will be destroyed in the atmosphere. And environmentalists and anti-nuke people are not concerned because it's a Soviet satellite, and everybody's grateful that it's not an American satellite, because otherwise we'd have demonstrations and all kinds of expressions of outrage. And the Justice Department is seeking to overturn a court-approved plan under which New Orleans promised to promote equal numbers of black and white police officers. The administration has asked a federal appeals court in New Orleans to let it intervene in the case. They want to send some guys down there who are good at counting. And, oh, there's one black. Okay, there's one white. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, make sure it's even Steven all the way. Better yet, what they could do is perform surgery and make Siamese twins out of a black guy and a white guy. This way, everybody, it can be nice and even Steven. Keep counting, folks. Keep counting. Hey, that's Leon Ginsburg. He's the West Virginia State Welfare Commissioner, and he says that the workfare program is working just fine down there in West Virginia. If it works fine down there, why can't it work fine up here? I'll tell you why, because up here we've got too many politicians who want to coddle the lazy, pigeon-livered bums. That's why. Excuse that outburst, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse it, will you? Will you think about it over the weekend, and perhaps you can find it in your heart to forgive me for that outburst. I popped a vein. The carotid artery. What do they call that artery? Anybody know what they call that artery in the vein? It begins with a C and ends with a D. Either one of you people listening know that? And, of course, let's see, what else? Oh, Long Island. 883-WMCA. 883-WMCA. Now, those of you who do not have 2 8s on your telephone dial, use the 1 8 you have twice. You never thought of it that way. Well, that's true. You see, you punch up. Do it right now. I want you to do it in unison. Everybody, in Long Island. In unison. 8. Now that same 8 again. Now wait till it goes back. 8. 8. That's good. 3. Okay, now. W. M. C. A. Good. They've got it. I think they've got it. They've got it. Now, if they're not all screened out, we'll take a couple of calls. For you to act that way, Joe. By the way, Joe, I want to congratulate you. You know why?
Why?
Because even though the year is young, I'm sure you've helped me to participate in one of the most meaningless conversations of the year.
Isn't that great?
I think so, Joe.
Isn't that great?
I think so.
All right. Well, let's get the Strausses to get you off the air.
Oh, is that what you were calling about?
If that's what you want.
No, why should I want that? I don't want to have to go to work for a living. Thank you, Joe.
I know. You don't work for a living.
I'm on welfare. WMCA, excuse the interruption to the program with that little tete-a-tete with Joe.
I was rather puzzled by the outburst.
The outburst was against the politicians who cater to those people. I thought it was very clear. The outburst is against the politicians who cater to those people, coddle them, and create that type of slothful element in our society. I know people are shocked that I would have an outburst. They're used to me being mild-mannered, even-tempered, and unobtrusive. and non-controversial. You're on WMCA. Hello.
And, every time you say get Gaddafi, I think you should say a different word. Get Washington. Get something else.
All right, George, you hear that? She wants to get... Listen, try the smaller olives in the martinis. They really, they tell me they're better.
I don't understand.
Neither do I. Thank you, dear. Thank you very much. That slams the lid on things for today and for this week. Until Monday, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi.
And it must be remembered that the contributions of workers were included in total earnings on which they paid taxes. The mess Social Security is in is no different from the mess it was in when Barry Goldwater, campaigning for the presidency in 1964, told us about it. He warned us what was happening, and they vilified him for daring to say the emperor has no clothes. Do you remember that, Mr. Grant? Well, I was a very young lad at the time, but yes, I do remember. And it must be remembered that the contributions of workers were included in total earnings on which they paid taxes. The most ludicrous amendment to the original act that created the SS Fund is the one which gives the divorced wives who stayed married 10 years, give them the annuity benefits which equal those his wife or widow might collect, even though none of these women contributed anything to the fund. Well, this person who wrote this letter is so right. So right. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And that's one of those rare times I find myself on the side. Hold on to your heart. Call Barney Clark. One of the few times I find myself on the side of the ACLU, I think that moment of silence is dumb. Dumb! Excuse me. Let me say that again. I think that moment of silence is kind of dumb. There, that's better. Take some of the, take some of the edge off. You use the word kind of. Nothing's as bad, right? You can say anything you want. Just say kind of. No, I'm just joking. Stay tuned for special edition. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. Now, and when I see somebody who is financially as successful as Steinbrenner is, and even Martin's no slouch. For a guy with his hang-ups, he does pretty well. When I see these guys do as well as they do, with the obvious problems they have, I'm encouraged. I say to myself, all I have to do is get a little sicker, and I'll make more money. That's it. Here, I thought I was too sick. I'm not sick enough. Until we next meet, Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. Okay.
Grant, 1 second. Are you gonna just sign off now?
Sign off? You mean say get Gaddafi?
Yeah.
No, that comes up in about 18 minutes.
Oh.
You want to say get Gaddafi?
Yeah, I'd like.
You want to do the sign off?
Yeah, I'd like to do.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to put you on hold.
Yeah.
This isn't going to cost a lot of money. You're on a local. I'm going to put you on hold, and when it's time to do the sign off, I'll come back to you.
You will?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
How do you pronounce your name again?
My name is Karen.
Bases. Don't forget. Straight ahead is special edition. Karen, go ahead.
Can I use your name in it?
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. This is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Get Gaddafi.
Have a wonderful chief of police out here, Joe Delaney.
You better believe it. Joe Delaney really told those Soviets where to get off.
He certainly did. Dipping into the general fund ultimately to cover the deficit that they obviously have right now. But in all this talk about Social Security, including your own conversations that I was fortunate enough to tune in on recently, nobody has ever pointed out the fact that that fund, when it started, should have been left alone. And actuarially speaking, who's the fellow that drives the green car that you talk about, the stockbroker?
Oh, David Hazarai.
That's right. Even Fry could have managed that fund better than the government has.
That's right. Ganoff and Schmilenthal, right.
Exactly. And the point is that if you're going to have a retirement fund, in effect, it's what it is, forced insurance, then the management of that fund should be in such a way that the money put into the fund should be used for growth and untouched by anybody. It should be totally sacrosanct.
Yeah, that's right.
And most people talk about Social Security like it falls out of the sky, and they don't realize had they had the option, or many people had the option, starting off in life initially, of going to the XYZ insurance company and putting the same number of pennies into the fund, that they would be sitting back living fat now.
And that slams it on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about something, I don't know, I guess far more pleasant. First of all, I forgot to tell you that Paul Needlenose Menage is back out on a work release program from Allenwood, Pennsylvania. Paul Needlenose Menage, who you probably have read about in the newspapers many times. You probably saw a motion picture in which a great actor portrayed him, and the life story of Paul Needlenose Menage. Well, Mr. Menage is out on a work release program, and he has renegotiated a brand new contract with Strauss Communications to once again serve as our answer to Jimmy the Greek. And there are a few differences between Mr. Menage and Jimmy the Greek. One being, well, let's see, about 300 pounds. It isn't that Mr. Menage is that thin. It's just that Jimmy the Greek is that corpulent. Have you noticed? How do they get all of him on the screen? That's what I don't understand. And Paul Needlenose Menage, who is on a work release program, is going to be here, brought to you through the courtesy of the Yugo Matsututa family. Paul Ashpara, concierge. Here now, Paul Needlenose Menage. Did I say Paul Ashpara? No, Rudy Ashpara. Here's Mr. Menage.
All right, thanks, Bob. First of all, let me tell you, you're going to be the Jets. The Jets are going to win by 10 points. Take the Jets. Take the Jets. By the way, the official line with the boys, has the Raiders 3-point favorites. Take the points and the Jets. You're going to win big, baby. Big. Then the Redskins over the Vikings, favored by 6. Take the Skins and the points, because they're going to beat the Vikes. The Vikes don't belong in the same stadium with the Redskins. I picked the Chargers over the Dolphins. That's 1.5 points. That's the best bet of the day. And I hate to say this, because I hate Tom Landry and his dumb bald head, but it's going to be them Cowboys beating the Packers, but not by 7 points. So take the Packers. So there it is. Raiders, Redskins, Chargers, and Packers. Packers will beat the spread, but won't beat the Cowboys. That's it for now. So long, Bob. I got to check in with my parole officer.
That was Paul Needlenose Menage, out on a work release program from Allenwood, brought to you today through the courtesy of the Yugo Matsututa family. And straight ahead, the news, get Gaddafi. Well, we're concerned with our WMCA listeners. I'm prompted to look into a camera with a constipated look, a la Michelle Marsh, and say, if it concerns you, it concerns us. But I feel that way today. Hey, I want to dig a hole for myself here. If it does concern you, look at what we're ministering to you, my dear friends. First, we attempted to take care of the outer you. And now the inner you. That most important part of your equipment, at least from a physical standpoint, the heart. You see me sitting here, I probably look fairly serene and relaxed, and I am. But this may come as a great shock to you. I've been known to blow my stack and get into great acrimonious colloquies with callers to the program. And prior to the new era of the 80s, when it was announced from Mount Olympus that people in the 80s didn't want hollering, I used to blow my stack quite a bit. Now, I recall one day in particular when it had been an enervating 4 hours. The Bob Graham program in those days was 4 hours. And I had had an appointment with a doctor, a very well-known cardiologist, to have an examination. It was just a routine examination. He had been listening to the program. Therefore, when I got to his office shortly after the broadcast, he said, "Do you want to lie down? Do you want to relax for a while before I take your blood pressure?" And I said, go ahead. Well, he took it. It was 110/72. And he said, "Hey, everything's, and then he continued his examination. And he said, "This is amazing. I just heard you screaming and ranting and raving on the radio." Well, apparently, what would upset me externally did not translate to some powerful problems internally.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a tremendous amount of variability. I think what is one man's poison, another person loves and thrives on.
Are you suggesting that I like to shout?
Yeah, I imagine it gets rid of a lot of,
Right, it does. It does. That's why I don't have any ulcers to this day.
Right.
Until tomorrow, Bob Graham. Your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. Do you want to be fit? Well, maybe not enough. We all want to be fit. We all want to lose a couple of pounds, toughen the muscles and flatten the stomach and all that. But we don't want to do the work for it. But guys like me and 10,000 others share you, are able to talk endlessly about diets and losing weight. And what's the latest? Is it the Northampton diet? Is it the Scarsdale diet with Bonanima, Dr. Tonauer? Is it the high-fat diet? Is it the low-fat diet? Is it the high... No, I'm not going to subject you to what it isn't. It's the Dallas diet. The Dallas diet. And for those of you who really want to be where it's at, for those of you who like to keep up with the news and the important events that make the news, I'm the man behind the... No, never mind. I must confess. I must confess. I yield to I don't know who. But we're going to talk to the person who played the Beaver for many years on that TV show, Leave It to Beaver. I'm proud to tell you I never watched it. I'm proud to tell you I never watched Leave It to Beaver. The title alone would have prevented me from watching it. The title alone. So, practicing through thin radio, Bob Grant admits he's never watched Leave It to Beaver. But I know you have, and you're what's important. As Michelle Marsh would say, if it's important to you, it's important to us. Yes.
This is Art from Long Island.
Yes, Art.
As an ex-supporter of the Democratic Party and a lifelong Democrat, I very horribly came to the realization that in the last couple of decades, the Democratic Party has been getting closer and closer and closer to criminal extremism. They've been coddling terrorists, and I think that Jimmy Carter brought it to a pinnacle with his friend Kerbo, personal emissary, going to visit Mr. Gaddafi. It kind of makes it hard for you to get Gaddafi under those circumstances.
Well, I could have got Gaddafi several years ago, but if I had several years ago, people would have said, well, what did he get that guy for? Because they didn't know about him like I did.
I know. And I'll tell you, Jimmy Carter started off his administration coddling terrorists when he got on the phone and begged some terrorists in Ohio to please give in. We'll give you this and we'll give you that.
Well,
with the Iranian terrorists think the Israelis were an embarrassment to him because they kept insisting that they would go in and get him in an Entebbe type thing. And then he went and blew it with his abortive raid.
Okay, so then you don't agree with the former president?
Oh, boy, no.
Okay, thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those few of you who may remember... And by the way, I'm getting sick and tired of people telling me I've mellowed. I haven't mellowed. What is mellowing? Wine mellows. People don't mellow. So for those of you who keep writing me these letters or talking about, oh, he's mellowed. Bob, how come you've mellowed? I have not mellowed. The idiocies of public life that outraged me 10 years ago outrage me, if anything, even more today. Now, I don't want to mar our get-together by reasserting my real self. Because we had some guy came out here from someplace west of the Rockies, and he said people don't want to hear anybody get angry anymore. I don't know who told him. To this day, I don't know what poll he conducted, but anyway. For a long time, I'm going to say something now. For a period of time, I haven't been sincere with the people. I haven't been myself. And within the last couple of weeks, I've done a little self-analysis.
A little soul-searching.
And a little soul-searching, that's a good way of putting it. And you know, I have to be me. I have to be myself. I'd rather not be on the air than be phony. And I've been phony. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming clean with you now. And I want you to know that Bob Grant is back.
He's going to be his old self again. That's what I like.
Well, see, spread the word. Bob Grant is back. He's through being phony. Well, that slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. But we do have some recommendations on what to do. By the way, let me say this. With the world market dropping, the Soviet Union stands to lose not only billions in oil revenue from falling prices, but billions in arms sales as their Arab clients no longer have either the oil royalties or Saudi subsidies to pay for those MiGs and SAMs and T-72s. And by the way, let me parenthetically remind you that most of those Katyusha Russian rockets are in Syria and they are facing Israel. And the only thing that keeps the Syrians from firing those Katyusha rockets is a lack of guts, because they know what would happen if they did. But what should we do? Well, immediate deregulation of natural gas. And whether prices rose or fell for consumers following deregulation, within a few years the United States would be afloat in gas. And with a mild winter ending, with half the U.S. drilling capacity idle, no better occasion will arise. After giving it considerable thought, the bottom line for me is the president's Saturday call was right on target, only it was perhaps not phrased correctly. Perhaps it was not sweeping enough. Who knows? Congressional repeal of the export ban on Alaskan oil. Immediate repeal would send hundreds of thousands of barrels onto the world market, would improve relations with and help correct our trade imbalance with Japan, and it would put added downward pressure on prices. And an immediate moratorium on purchases for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Now, this would reduce world demand, reduce federal spending, and enable the United States to fill reserve later at a cheaper price. Aha, smart. And continued leasing of federal lands for oil exploration and revision of the Clean Air Act with the national interest foremost in mind. Now, those are the points that I think we should pursue. And please, to the Cavones, don't go looking for gas-guzzling automobiles. On footnote, Mr. Mayor, talking to the mayor of Glen Cove, Long Island. If you've just joined us, ladies and gentlemen, he's Alan Perot. I guess this conversation was monitored by the Soviets out there, so they know everything we said about them.
Well, I'm sure they know a lot of what's going on in Glen Cove and throughout this whole Long Island area because they have very sophisticated microwave intercept equipment installed in Killenworth. I'm in knowledge that certainly the Soviets are spying on us here, and I'm sure we're doing the same in the Soviet Union.
Well, let's hope we're doing the same. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
And as far as you Soviet spies listening, listen closely, Soviets. Speaking of which, it's unemployment time for about 7,500 New York State employees today as they receive their layoff notices this afternoon. Officials, however, say most will be working again within the year. You see, they all have a brother-in-law or an Uncle Louie somewhere. Yeah, don't worry, they're connected. They're connected.
Oh, bird let the cat out of the bag, March 14th. My birthday, but more importantly, you know who else's birthday this is? If he were alive, he'd be 101 today. Albert Einstein. And something else good happened on this day, 100 years ago. Today, Karl Marx dropped dead. Oh, there's a couple of good reasons to cheer March the 14th. I got a letter from a woman who signed her letter, friend, and the first page rails against me, begins in the classical way. So many people start this way. I used to think you were so wonderful, but now, etc. I guess people feel they can zing you better if first they build you up, put you up on a pedestal so that they can knock you off. And with the usual threats of listening to another station or already telling you they listen to another station, it's my belief that if a person listens to a station, they write to that station. You don't write to stations you don't listen to. But anyway, she went on and on and on, and it turned out that the reason for her disaffection with me was what she perceived as my insensitivity to gays, to homosexuals. See, I don't even say fagulas anymore. I used to say fags, fagulas, and all that, but I don't even say that anymore. Anyway, if you cover the news, the more you are in this business, the more you realize that there's never an end to the bizarre stories that we have to report. Did you hear about the 14-year-old boy with only one leg? He was arrested Saturday on charges, I get a load of this, on charges that he and a 19-year-old companion abducted and sexually abused a 30-year-old Queens woman in the Port Authority bus terminal. An authority police officer described the one-legged boy as a career criminal. He was first arrested at the age of 10. The boy lost his leg when he fell in front of a train as he was attempting to rob someone on a subway platform. Officially, police only would confirm that the boy, the great irony here, he's not identified by name because of his age. And yet his victims could be raped, mugged, robbed, and yes, perhaps someday even murdered. But we can't know his name, right? Know the name of his victims, but don't know the name of the perpetrator because of his age. Well, that's lunacy. That's hypocrisy. But that's the law. Now, who was it? Was it Mr. Bunbury in Oliver Twist, was it, who said that sometimes the law is an ass? Well, we'll have our lesson in English literature a little later. Well, that slams the lid on things for today. A very busy, busy day. And just leaves me time to say until tomorrow. This is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Get Gaddafi. So difficult for this administration or any administration wishing to take a, quote, hard line to operate. I work with Time Magazine every Tuesday on a program called Special Edition. All they keep hammering at is for our president to be flexible. They never talk about Soviet intransigence. It's always that we should be flexible. And, of course, we have now made available for your usage
a line in Nassau and Suffolk counties. It's 883 WMCA, 883 WMCA, and of course all Westchester County nods knowingly as I say 237 WMCA. And they nod knowingly because they don't know what else to do, since they don't know how to dial or touch tone.
In case you run out of things to do, you could always be a PR man, right?
That's it.
Right. Now,
you remember that song, I'm My Own Grandpa? Well, I'm my own PR man.
yeah, good for you.